Farm Houston took me out of loneliness. Farm Houston opened the door for me to know that I have a place where I can talk to somebody who I can tell my problem or my situations, someone who can teach me, tell me things that I don't know.
My name is Hannah Terry, and I am the founding executive director of FAM Houston. I'm a Methodist pastor appointed to Westbury United Methodist Church, which is the church that birthed FAM Houston. Back in January of 2012, an apartment complex manager had cold called the church and said, "Hey, can you send somebody down sometime to start a Bible study?" And the pastors and lay leaders were like, "This doesn't usually happen. This has got to be God. And what if God is inviting us to make a long-term commitment to our neighborhood and to grow relationships with neighbors that we don't know right now?" We began to pray and discern this larger, ask these larger questions of what's the mission that we're living into, and FAM Houston was birthed. And we began to ask during the pandemic, all of the issues of inequity and the lack of access to fresh food, to having jobs, to having, access to healthcare, education, all of those things became incredibly exasperated. And we began to ask, how do we respond to this crisis? We began to dream, what would it look like for us to find land that the Women's Empowerment Group could be making their decisions around how to grow food for their own families, how that's a part of God's dream of justice for the world, for God's dream for justice in Houston for these women and their children. And one thing led to another, and out of these conversations, Alief ISD has 27 acres in West Houston, just a little bit, just a few miles from Memorial Drive. And they said, "Hey, do you want to come here? What would it be like for you to have a farm here?" So it felt like land fell out of the sky in 2020. The pandemic led to incredible difficulty, tremendous difficulty, but also the opportunity to, in conversation, collaborate and say, what do you have? What do we have? How can we come together and do something better together?
So Hannah and I have known each other for a long time. We've been trying to figure out ways that we could partner together. And there was this desire in the congregation that we want to be in ministry with the communities of immigrants and refugees in Houston. We know that these folks are all around us, but we don't really know how to get started with that. Once again, it was easy to find sort of one-time connection points, but how do we do this in a sustained and sustainable way? We just weren't sure, but that desire was there. The pandemic heightened a lot of the need in our community. It brought a lot of the points of need and disconnection to the forefront. And I think for us here at MDUMC, it brought the question of who is our neighbor and how do we connect with our neighbor? What does it mean to be deeply involved and deeply rooted in our neighborhood? It brought those questions back to the forefront of our mind, because whether we like it or not, COVID has indelibly changed our neighborhood. It's changed West Houston. It's changed all of us. Part of the beauty of FAM and the broad work that the organization does and that the people undertake, it means that every church partnership looks different. Some of that will be through work at Shambaya Amani, and then some of it will be helping, hopefully, to pilot the Pomoja project, where we will be bringing folks who are already here living in Houston with folks who are recently arrived, and really just figuring out what we have to learn from each other, all the ways that we can help each other find community and find relationships and places to call home.
Pomoja project, the dream is to find people in the community, especially Americans, who are willing to help us with our women. Most of our women are refugees, illiterate, people who didn't go to school, or even those who went to school. They need somebody to hold their hand. They need somebody to tell them that it's gonna be okay. Because me, even though I'm working with FAM right now, I needed that person who will tell me every day that, Francine, it's gonna be okay. When I came to America, I didn't know any English. But one organization on Long Island, was sending people to detention to visit. This one family, stood up and said, I will take that girl who don't know nothing, who don't have anybody in America. Every week, for the time that I was in there trying to fight my case, somebody will come to visit me. And the way we will communicate, we will touch the window. I was in the detention, I wasn't able to go outside. I will touch the window, I will cry, and the person to the other side will cry. We didn't use words, but just that act of seeing another human. That family didn't see refugee or asylum. That family saw another human who needs somebody, another human being who want to be connected with another human being. That's what I expect Pamoja will do, because without that one person, I won't be here. I will not be here.
When I think about FAM and the work of FAM, I think about hope. I think about joy that cannot be suppressed no matter the circumstances. I think about imagination. I think about trusting the call of God.
We see in Jesus that God came to us. God came with skin on to accompany us. And that is what it means to learn to follow Jesus. It's to learn to have God accompany you, for you then to accompany another. And that's what I'm really excited about with our partnership with Memorial Drive and with FAM, is that we're going to be learning to embody that Christ accompanying with each other and then with our neighbors here in Houston.